Right, UFC 301. In my opinion, this card actually looks very good stylistically. And the first fight here is a very good fight to start off the card with. Alessandro Costa versus Kevin Borges. I'm surprised again by the amount of people picking Alessandro Costa to win the fight. I don't really rate him that much, and I'm going to go with Kevin Borges to win via decision. And I know you might think that's stupid, because if you watch his last fight with Joshua Van, this guy right here, he dropped Joshua Van, but you don't see it on his record because to get the knockdown rule, you have to put them on their back. He dropped into his butt and he got straight back up, but it was a powerful shot that dropped him. So in my opinion, that was a knockdown. And you've got Alessandro Costa, who, against Steve Erceg, he didn't look too great. And okay, he's fighting on the main event, but I've always noticed with Costa, he's got very good leg kicks, but because of his height, I'm joking by the way, but because he's not that, like, in my opinion, I have not seen the power in the UFC. I don't really rate his power that much. I think he's going to struggle to beat Kevin Borges in a technical battle because you're not knocking this guy out. This guy's got a good chin on him. He was getting peppered by Tyson. Not Tyson, I keep forgetting his name. Oh, what was his name? Joshua Van against the cage, because all he did is headhunt, and because he dropped him, he got a bit excited. And against Costa, I don't think he's going to drop him. I think he's going to be a bit more patient because he knows that if he knocks you down, jumping onto someone isn't going to win you the fight because you'll end up gassing out. Even though you're at flyweight and you don't even weigh that much, you should have better cardio anyway and survive. He's got some good, like, nice little uppercuts that come straight down. And Costa's going to struggle to grapple because Borges is quite big. And yes, we've seen him get taken down a few times. Like Joshua Van, he's short and small as well. He isn't the type of guy you would think to be able to get good control, but he was. And he was able to outwork him, but I don't think Costa's got that same ability to do it. Especially because I think Borges, he's not going to have to worry about the speed of Costa. Costa's not extremely fast like Van is, but he can throw a lot of leg kicks that can kind of make you stationary and then shoot on you. And then to try and get loads of control time, I think he's going to struggle. So I do see Kevin Borges going out there and just outboxing him, pretty much using his jab and using his leg kick and teeping the kicks, because Costa might win the kick battle, but he won't win the battle with the hands. Right, Ismael Bonfim versus Vinc Pichel. At this point, I'm not even going to call the fight a lock. I'm going with Bonfim, but you can't call fights locks anymore. You have a guy like Bruno Silva coming up against Chris Weidman. Everyone, not everyone, but you know what I mean, like 95% of people like here picking him to win. He gets eye poked, fair enough, it should have been a no contest. But he was losing even without the eye pokes. And I know that would have impacted his performance, but when you get to an age of like 41, we're entering the Trinaldo age. I cannot see Vinc Pichel beating Bonfim, not just because of that, the activity as well. But that being said, like I just mentioned, shocks happen. Like we had the other week, St. Peru beating Kennedy and Chukwueze. This shouldn't be happening, but I'm going to go with Bonfim to win via decision. And I know that's a kind of hard pick to make because Vinc Pichel, he fights a bit like Bobby Green. Hands down, good footwork, fast jabs, and it's hard to see where the punches are coming. And the way that this could be a problem for Bonfim is, one thing I've noticed is he always kind of like throws his shots coming over the top. They're never like straight. They're either hooks that come around and up, or punches like crosses that come up and down. You'll never really see him throw a lot of straight punches. And you've got a guy like Pichel who's going to throw a lot of straight punches, which are going to be hard to read because his hands are down. And one thing Bonfim has showed me is he can get a bit excited in terms of messing about in the cage. And if he does something like that, he'll lose to Pichel and get outstriked. But I think he'll mix in the grappling against Vinc Pichel. And we saw what Marco Madsen was able to do. And fair enough, he's an Olympic gold wrestler. Bonfim isn't, but he has got good grappling and he has got jiu-jitsu to go with it. And Vinc Pichel hasn't got amazing takedown defense, and I can see a guy like Bonfim finding success with the grappling. But then again, you might say hands down is going to make it much harder, which is true. But I believe the age here, the ring rust, it was all going in Bonfim's favour. He fought Benoit Saint-Denis, he lost, fair enough. But that guy just fought Poirier, and everyone thought that guy was going to beat Poirier. Not me, but I'm just saying. So I think Bonfim can go out there and do a lot of kicking. I'd look to do a lot of kicking to the legs and then shoot in on him, because he's going to have to use a lot of movement, Vinc Pichel, to try and even beat Bonfim. So I think if he can just work them legs early and apply the pressure and get his back up against the cage, he can look to do some takedowns and end up winning this fight. I can see it being like a 29-28. I don't think he'll dominate him completely. I think Vinc Pichel could have a good first round, and then second and third, Bonfim ends up winning. Right, Mauricio Ruffy versus Jamie Mullarkey. Who am I going with? You know what? Obviously, I'm going with Mauricio Ruffy to win via KO in the first round. And the reason I'm picking first round is Jamie Mullarkey, to me, he has just been coasting by in these fights. So if you want to go back to them one by one, let's start off with the Michael Johnson. A lot of people said that Michael Johnson won that fight. Then you go to the Prado fight. That is the only fight in the last 5 where I believe he got a legitimate win. Because obviously he lost to Naimov, was winning the fight, gets dropped. And it wasn't short notice for Naimov as well. And John Makadesi, oh my god, this guy is like 39 years of age. They had a competitive fight, and John Makadesi probably should have won on damage. Look at Mullarkey's face after the fight. I know you don't just look at that, but he didn't even think he won that fight. And then you go to the fight of Nasrat Haqparast. Inevitable to happen because the guy's got power. And when he comes up against a guy with power, he fades and gets dropped because his chin is actually shocking. It's so bad. And this guy is a welterweight who's come down to lightweight, I believe. And watch back some of his fights. Look at him on the Contender. His takedown defense looks very good. So if you think Jamie Mullarkey will do what he does sometimes by bringing people down if he doesn't want to strike with them, not happening. Plus the size as well isn't going to happen. Another thing about this guy, which you're not going to like me saying, is he's like, the way his stance is like a Poundland Conor McGregor back in the day. And he used to have the braids, which would have made you think he looked a bit like him as well. Obviously not facially, but you know what I mean with the haircut and stuff. And the way he moves on the toes, a bit like Yusha Kanita Nakamura, that guy. Like, hand out, comes out of fighting nerds with Chao Borralho, guys like that. He's going to have good people to train with. And although Chao Borralho is much bigger than Ruffy, he can still train with him and learn. And if you think that Jamie Mullarkey is going to be able to KO him, I'd be shocked. The only way he can win this is by decision, if he somehow can keep him at range and just poke him. But I don't think he can do that because Ruffy's too powerful. He has got this type of like one-shot power where if you overcommit like we've seen Mullarkey do and freeze up a bit, he can put you out of that one punch. And I believe Ruffy's that type of guy where it's going to happen. I really do think it's going to happen. I think he's going to flatline him in the first round. And he's one of these fighters where he's going to be ones to watch because he looks really interesting. Like, especially how I said about the style like McGregor, but he doesn't throw the spinning wheel kicks. He might throw a few leg kicks, but he doesn't throw loads of like wheel kicks and all this flashy stuff. He just throws kicks. So yeah. Right, Drakkar Klose versus Joaquim Silva. I am going with Drakkar Klose, and I think he's going to win by decision. I'm surprised a lot of people are actually going with by KO, and I'll tell you why. He knocked out Joe Selecki with a slam. But Joaquim Silva, I believe, is going to want to go out there and strike. He will want to do the opposite to what his opponent's best at. That's common sense at the end of the day. Like, this guy rocked Arman Tsarukyan, but I wouldn't read too much into that because we've had people like BJ Penn, who's old, get sparked by some random guy at a bar. So getting chinned can happen to people is what I'm trying to say, but I don't think Joaquim Silva will be able to do what he did against Clay Guida, because Clay Guida at times was able to push that pace, be aggressive, you know what he's like, in your face, not really powerful, but he's got a lot of cardio and will just keep shooting in on the legs. Drakkar Klose is like no, I'm not going to say that. He's stronger than Clay Guida. So when you get in these positions where his back is up against the cage, I can see Drakkar Klose being able to pretty much outstrength him. Like, when he fought Rafa Garcia, he was able to mix up some grappling as well. Like, I used to think Drakkar Klose's striking was decent, but his grappling is very decent as well. And I think it's going to be, in my opinion, I don't want to say this, but I think this will be one of the most boring fights on the card. Because I think Klose will just have this guy on the ground and Joaquim Silva will be trying to like shrimp and move. But because Drakkar Klose is so good at wrestling, he's going to really struggle to be able to maintain, to push him off the hips, pretty much. So I think it's going to be a fight where Drakkar Klose is all over him because Joaquim Silva, he's one of those heavy-handed. He wants to swing and hit you and just be that type of brawler. It's not going to work against Drakkar Klose, in my opinion. So I can see him going out there and just holding him down on the ground and pretty much just playing a safe performance and winning. Right, Gene Silva versus William Gomis. This is a very interesting fight. One, Gene Silva, for me, He's got a good personality, but that don't mean you can win a fight. Like William Gomis is the definition of very technical, a lot of low kicks, a lot of touching. Oh my God, I was going to say, no. I was going to say touching you, but not in that type of way. When he touches you, I'm talking about like lightly tapping his opponent when he throws strikes. A bit like, what's his name? Victor Henry. But the way I said that was just going to sound weird regardless. So it's really light. Gene Silva, the opposite. Very aggressive, raw, hard, powerful type of overhands. And pretty much, again, a bit like Ismael Bonfim, shots that come over the top. And it seems like he tries to sit down on most of his punches, looking to knock you out. And against Gomis, that's going to be very hard. But one thing he does very well is sometimes leaving the exchange, he can trip you over. A bit of Muay Thai in there. And I believe that would be a benefit because Gomis isn't too like beefy or bulky either. He's not that big. And Gene Silva looks bigger than he does in the cage. Apart from the height, when I'm talking about like muscle, your size instead, not just frame, I think he looks bigger. And one thing that I've noticed from William Gomis, I haven't picked the winner by the way, I was going to do Gene Silva, and I do think he's going to do it by decision because William Gomis is a guy who's hard to finish because of how much he moves. But I think Gene Silva will capitalise on them trips and look to pretty much hold him down and look to do ground and pound. But I think William Gomis's chin's good enough to pretty much keep moving and surviving. Because if you look back at that fight with Francis Marshall and William Gomis, near the end of the round in round 3, Francis Marshall had his back. They're on the ground and he's throwing strikes, but you can't finish him. He was just surviving William Gomis. He won the fight because he won the first 2 rounds because his opponent fought like an idiot pretty much and tried to strike with a striker when he was the grappler who was meant to go out there and use wrestling. It confused my brain. But I think Silva will mix it all up. And William Gomis, for me, has shown good takedown defence. But when you've got a guy coming at you full of power and then shooting in on you, he's going to have to worry about, as well as the threat of the takedown, the power that this guy has. Because if you look at the other opponents, Yanis Gamori, short notice, a late switch fight. Marshall, he doesn't even look like he's got that much power. He's meant to be a grappler who just looks bulky. And then you've got Jono Aarons, who's just not power. He is pretty much just a volume striker at this point. He had a good performance in his last fight, but against Stephen Eugen, but that doesn't show me any signs that I think he can definitely beat Silva. So I think Silva's going to do it by decision for me. Right, Charles Oliveira versus Islam Makhachev, we have at home. No, I'm joking, by the way, but anyways, I don't know how to pronounce that guy's name. Elves Brenner versus Myktybek Orolbai. Yeah. His last fight, oh my God, it was domination. It reminds me of what Jalen Turner did to Eurosmedic, but if I'm going to pick one, I'm going to pick Orolbai, and I think this is going to go to a decision. I think Brenner's a hard guy to submit because he's always going to be a threat off his back. So you're going to see, on the ground with Orolbai, he's going to try and keep himself postured up and not allow his head to go too deep into the armpit of Elves Brenner. Because if he can get a single arm guillotine, remember this guy's at Shoot Box training with guys like Oliveira. He just beat Guram Kutaladze, not that fight. That was a short notice which shouldn't have happened against some random guy they brought in. No. This fight here was very impressive. It was back and forth, but it was like a headbutt. Even though I think Elves Brenner was thriving in that fight, that's not enough to convince me that he'll beat this guy, Myktybek Orolbai, because Eurosmedic is one of those guys he doesn't like pressure grapplers, and this was a prime example of it here. But Orolbai is a guy who can do that very well. And not only can he just mix up the pressure, it's the fact that he has power with his hands. It's giving me Rinat Fekiritinov type of vibes. He's only got 1 loss in his record. And if you look at the guy who did it, I'll take you to it right here. This guy right here. 13-0. I know he's fighting a bunch of cans. You will see a lot of guys here who got half-decent records, and this is the guy he lost to. No shame in that whatsoever. It's only 1 loss in his record. And I believe Elves Brenner, he's kind of an overachiever because he should have lost to Zabora Tekehugov. He should not have won that fight. I was very shocked when I saw that he won it. But he's a very fun fighter to watch. He'll do a lot of things that you want to see. Like aggression. He won't just quit when it's getting hard, and he'll just stay in your face and start trying to use them elbows and looking to land that high kick. And that walk-off knockout that he got, I think it was a walk-off, but that overhand left what he did. Very impressive, but I just think this guy here is one fighter who's going to go far in lightweight. You're already seeing people mocking him because of the way he looks with Clay Guida and stuff. You've seen the pictures. If you haven't, Just browse on Instagram and type in his name and you'll probably see what I'm on about. But that's irrelevant. So, yeah. Orolbai to win for me. Right, you're not going to like me for this one. I really want to pick Brito, but something in my brain is telling me that Jack Shaw's going to go out there, and I honestly think there's a very good chance that he could submit Brito, but I'm going to go with a decision. I know how Joanderson Brito's going to want to come out in this fight because Jack Shaw, to me, is a really slow starter. Like, he'll probably give away the first round. And you could argue that against Brito, that's one of the most dangerous fighters to give away the first round. Because if you're messing about and you can't get your striking going or your timing, Brito can flatline you in the first round, no problem. But I believe the reason why he looked a bit rusty earlier on, especially in the fight he had recently, Myktybek, was because, one, he had, like, how long was it out? Probably a good almost year out of the cage. And then he comes back, moves up a weight class, looks out of shape, and looked quite rusty. And I believe in this fight, him being out of shape, it sounds so dumb, this logic. But when I say out of shape, like having more fat on him will benefit him against a guy like Brito compared to Myktybek, because although Brito can grapple, that's not what his go-to is. His go-to is striking. Like, this guy, Brito, actually did hold down Diego Lopez much better than Movsar Evloev did, which makes you really think, like, this guy is very underrated in this weight class, and he'll be in the rankings very soon. He wanted Dan Ige. I'm surprised they didn't give it to him. But anyways, Jack Shaw, for me, is going to go out there. I think he's going to be straight on them legs, but he isn't going to leave his neck exposed like the way how Jonathan Pearce did, because he doesn't just volume grapple. He actually mixes up his striking, like countering with jabs and staying on the outside, is what he'd want to do if he wants to strike, even though I don't want him to strike. If he's going to strike, you don't want to be in the pocket with him. And another thing, Brito's not really going to engage grappling unless Jack Shaw does it. And I believe trying to find that choke on Jack Shaw is going to be very hard, because the only reason that he got submitted against Simone is because he got dropped, I believe, and then whilst he was on the floor concussed, he locks in an arm triangle. I don't see Brito doing that. I see Jack Shaw shooting on them legs, and because he will look much bigger in cage than Brito, he don't even look that big, he's going to be on the floor with him, and Brito's going to keep turning and twisting, trying to get up, but giving away his back. And I think Jack Shaw's going to get these submission attempts, but I don't know if he's going to be able to finish it on Brito. So that's why I'm going with a decision. I think the first round he's going to give it away, and then in the second and the third he's just going to be boring, hold him down, and just hug him on the ground to a decision. That's how I see Jack Shaw. Even though I rate Brito more as a fighter, I just think this is a good matchup for Shaw. In a weird way, I think he could win it. Right, Paul Craig versus Chao Borralho. Again, another underrated fight. I hope they send a prelim. No, it's not. To open up the card. I'm sorry, I don't know why I keep doing this, but honestly, I don't know. My brain is telling me pick Borralho, but then again, this is a Paul Craig. You know what, I'm going to stick to Borralho. It's probably more logical. I think he's going to win by KO. And I think if he's going to win by KO, he's going to have to get it done in the first round. We saw the striking improvements by him. Like, he was able to go out there and drop Abus Magomedov. And Magomedov's meant to be the striker. Borralho's meant to be the grappler. His striking has improved. He looks a bit like Paulo Costa, to be fair, but Paul Craig, for me, the only thing I worry about is if Borralho takes him down, because I've seen times when guys bring him down thinking, right, he'll be all right to deal with. Brendan Allen could do it, but that is when you play a dangerous game, because if you bring him down to the ground, you are now opening up his favourite part of MMA, which is the jiu-jitsu. And one thing I noticed with Chao Borralho when he fought, what was his name? Mahmoud Muradov, that was it. He was on the ground getting takedowns, but he was also getting reversed a lot. And I'm thinking, if you get reversed against Paul Craig at any point in this fight, he will submit you. Because if you're on the ground, you're looking to land damage and throw punches, look at Magomed Ankalaev. Throwing punches comfortably, thinking that, yes, I've won the fight, bang, out of nowhere, you've been caught in a triangle. You're now tapping for Mark Goddard or whoever's going to referee the fight to jump in and stop it. So I'm expecting Borralho to do what he did last fight and not mess about going for takedowns and just purely striking. There is no need to bring it to the ground of him. The risk to reward is just not worth it when you can just outstrike Paul Craig. He hasn't got a great chin. He's pretty much a 1-2 head kick guy. he should be able to get in there, switch the stance, and then be able to land an overhand on him and put him down. Or do what Johnny Walker did. If he tries to shoot on your legs, start firing offense, because he hasn't got amazing takedowns, Paul Craig, either. But because he's quite big and he'll be bigger than Borralho, that might make it hard for him to defend against takedowns. So I can kind of get that logic. But I think, like, if he blasts double legs him, but I think, honestly, Borralho should be able to win this by KO. Right, here we have the definition of top 10 fights that just should never have been made. What is Michel Pereira doing fighting Ihor Potieria? He was meant to fight Putin. Don't know what happened there, but this is another stat pad for me, Pereira. I'm confident he's going to beat Potieria. Potieria was out there the last fight doing capoeira kicks and spinning on the floor against a static kickboxer. No, not even a kickboxer, just boxer. Flat-footed boxer. And Ihor Potieria, again, another fighter with a bad chin, so I've got to go with a KO in the first round because Michel Pereira looks like he was that fighter now. He's just going out there to demolish you in the first round. Straight up, just in your face. No BS. Cross. Shoot for a takedown maybe. Get your back. Submit you. But I don't think he'll try and submit Potieria. Because again, he's a bit bigger than Pichel. So I'm going with him to go out there and do what he did to... What was his name? I keep forgetting his name. It'll have to come up here. Andrei Petrosky. I'll submit to Myktybek. Hold on. So, yeah. He's going to run straight through him. I don't know what else to say. Like, he's just going to go out there with a right cross, put him down, and work the body if it goes longer than a round. And then Potieria will gas because of the weight cut, because he's carrying more weight. And even though I said Pereira's not got the greatest cardio, we don't know at middleweight yet. And I do think he's going to be able to put him away. Like, I've said it multiple times. Shogun Rua caught him with a good shot in that fight, and he just... Because he opens up his chin, he leaves his chin so open. Carlos Ulberg took advantage of it, and I believe Michel Pereira is going to do it, but it's going to be a brutal win again. Just flatlined him round one, and we'll be on the next fight. Right, this fight here is just... It reminds me of Bruno Silva against, what's his name, Chris Weidman, where it shouldn't happen, but I can just see it happening. But I'm not going to go with Anthony Smith. I'm going with Victor Petrino. He should be able to KO him in the first round. How long ago was that? 4 months ago. When he got brutally uppercutted, left hook, flatlined onto the ground. We all know Anthony Smith's... His brain's going, like, his chin's gone. And remember that moment, you're taking things from my family, and he was probably out there trolling, or maybe he was concussed, or God knows what was going through his brain when he said that. But to be fair, they are getting hit. But Victor Petrino, to me, has never stood out to me as like a really good fight. He really hasn't. He don't look technical. He looked mid against a finished Tyson Pedro. Modestas Bukauskas, that was a good win, like a check hook, quite technical. Carlos Ulberg would be proud. And Marcin Prechino, again, that was a decent performance by mixing up grappling. But the one thing that he likes doing now, which we never saw before he entered the UFC, is grappling. And if he dares to try and mix up grappling with Anthony Smith, he'll get triangle choked because his grappling is not that good. But what he should do is strike, because Anthony Smith, he can't take a leg kick. And if I was Victor Petrino in this fight, I would be looking to work the legs, because Anthony Smith has dealt with a lot of leg issues because of that bone or like damage that he had against Ankalaev that one time as well. And Victor Petrino should be able to KO him through boxing because he's very stiff, but because he's big, he should be fighting at heavyweight. I think the power of him will hit like how Khalil Rountree is, but Khalil Rountree is more technical than this guy. But I'm saying like the power because of his weight, behemoth of a person. And I think Anthony Smith, retirement fighter, I don't know why he's doing this, taking unnecessary amounts of damage. But what do I know? Like, next thing you know, what's going to happen? He's going to go out there and just somehow take him down, take his back and submit him. Again, it could happen and I wouldn't be surprised, but I am going with Petrino. Right, so we have, what's his name? Jose Martinez versus Jose Aldo. Obviously, I know his name. Jose Aldo, for me, is going to win this fight comfortably. If he can't use his leg kicks, there is no power in the hands. Aldo is a leg kick specialist, whether it's defensively or if it's offensively. I can't see how Jonathan Martinez can win this fight. They had to be separated at the weigh-ins. That don't mean anything, but I'm seeing a very even pick. And I know that Jose Aldo's older now and he hasn't looked too good, but look at the guys he's been fighting. Merab Dvalishvili, that's aged very well for him now in terms of look how good Merab is, and it was just hugging. Martinez can't do that because with Merab, he's strong. he likes to crotch sniff. Jonathan Martinez is the opposite at times. Like, he can hug, but he won't crotch sniff. He'll just hold a body lock against the cage. But I think against Aldo, it won't work. Merab's able to do it because he's very good with grappling. Martinez, more of a hugger when it comes to clinching in the cage and not doing anything with it. So, for me, Martinez is a very good leg kick specialist, but you're coming up against a guy who's more experienced and is better. I don't care how old he is. Like, you look at the wins he had at bantamweight, Rob Font, Pedro Munoz and Marlon Vera. They're good wins to have, and you're seeing Jonathan Martinez that looks better. Like, again, you could argue he's overachieving as well. Like, the Cub Swanson leg kicks, that was just pure pain for Cub Swanson. And then you have the Adrian Yanez where, again, it looked like a guy, like, putting a boxer in an MMA cage, which it pretty much is with Yanez. He might as well become a boxer at this point because he was just getting leg kicks and he didn't adapt to it. Jose Aldo can, and that's why you might think I'm riding him right now. It's been out for a long time. But it's the type of fight where it's not one where he can be knocked out in. Obviously, it's a fight, and deep down, yes, it could. But in my brain, I can't imagine Jose Aldo getting Conor McGregor'd by Jonathan Martinez. I can see the opposite, but I don't think it will. I think it will be a technical leg kick by Aldo, teeping a lot of them and just schooling him, men against boys situation. So yeah, I've got Aldo to win. Steve Erceg against Alex Pantoja. I am not even joking. Like, I hate saying this because I think Pantoja's one of the most underrated champions we've had. I'm starting to think that Steve Erceg, he will not knock him out, but I can actually see Steve Erceg winning a decision. I know Pantoja's experienced and all of that, but Steve Erceg is one of those guys as well with very good jiu-jitsu. He can be taken down, but you can't hold him there for long. He does get hit a lot, but he can also push through it. And one thing I've noticed from Pantoja, he's got a great chin, and both of these guys don't really move their head. So at the end of the day, who lands the more powerful strikes? It's quite even, 50-50, but I would go with Steve Erceg with power. But with Pantoja, for me, he's going to have to go out there and try and take the back, because if he can go out there, do his simple double leg, throw them against the cage so that their side is backing into it, and then wrap his hand underneath the neck and get the hand onto the palm onto palm grip, then he's fine, because that's what he did against Brandon Royval. It was a lot of taking him down and holding his back, but I rate Steve Erceg's takedown defense better, and I rate his jiu-jitsu better than a guy like that. That's why I'm saying this fight isn't as, oh, Pantoja should walk straight through him. I know Steve Erceg's come out of nowhere, but he has been, like, on his debut, he wasn't meant to win that. A lot of people were picking the other guy, but David Dorak, but he went out there and he was doing, like, walking him straight down, which is what he does, eating shots, but then landing one of his own. And I believe he almost dropped David Dorak in that fight with a kick. And I think Pantoja, as good as he is, this is a matchup that actually could favour Steve Erceg, because one thing that Pantoja can do is he can get a bit tired. And I think when they're both tired, if I had to pick one fighter who can grill through it, I would have to go with Erceg. Like, Pantoja does a lot of holding, and again, I'm saying that Pantoja is a better fighter. This might come and bite me. I cannot have 3 losses on main cards. They've been good, but recently, to be fair, they've been a bit off. I do think that Erceg is going to win this fight. And I know a lot of you will say, that's just stupid. Pantoja will walk through him. His striking's just better. And I'm not just saying it because he knocked out Matt Chanel, because that's not all that he has done. You've got to watch him fight by fight. Like, if you take him down, he doesn't really give away his back too easily. It's hard to submit him. And his striking, I believe, it's not sloppy. Like, Pantoja's striking, it isn't amazing, but it's half decent, and his grappling is what makes him look so elite. So for me, Steve Erceg is going to win this fight via decision. I think it'll be a very competitive 48-47 type of fight. I don't think Pantoja's going to run straight through him. So, yeah, I think this will shock a lot of people, but I might be wrong. So, thank you for watching. Talk to you soon.